The views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of CNS Channel 6.
Welcome to Matters of Public Importance right here on Channel 6. I'm yours, Gail Teixeira, representing the Parliamentary Opposition and the People's Progressive Party Civic. This program on matters of public importance brings you information discussions on issues and matters of concern to you, the Guyanese public, every Thursday between 12:30 and 1:30 right here on Channel 6. And as usual, before we go into the meat of the program, I remind you of the numbers that you can use to call in: 225-0010 and 225-0008. And we'll probably start taking calls maybe 1:10 p.m. And as usual, I remind you that the Office of the Leader Opposition is open at 304 Church Street between New Garden and Peter Rose Street, Queenstown, and directly opposite the Border Cricket Ground. And we're open Monday to Friday all day from 9 to 5 o'clock, and Saturdays half day. So, and you can also call in our number. Our reception number is 225-3432. You're free to call and make an appointment or to ask to speak to someone to guide you on a matter. Freedom Radio continues to broadcast, as we always remind you, at FM 91.1 Demerara, 90.5 Berbice, and 90.7 Essequibo. And the Mirror newspaper continues to be available free online at www.facebook.com/Weekend Mirror News. Well, here we are on August the 22nd, and we will continue our tracking on the number of days that have been passed since the no confidence motion. Well, today is 244 days since the passage of the no confidence motion on December 21st, 2018, or 34 weeks or 8 months. Today is also 154 days since March the 21st, 2019, or 5 months after when elections were due, according to Article 106.6 and 106.7. And of course, again, another week has passed and the President has not acted to name a date for elections. Since the CCJ ruling on June 18th, the President has not abided with the Caribbean Court of Justice and continues to violate the Constitution. Firstly, the President and Cabinet have not resigned. 2, the President has not accepted that a caretaker government cannot exercise full powers to make decisions, grant contracts and agreements as per norm. 3, the President has not named a date for elections. And 4, the President has not dissolved the legislature, that is the National Assembly. It is the President, no other person, who is denying the Guyanese electorate the protected right to elect their representatives since March 21st, 2019. In fact, until the President names a date, GCOM, even if it were ready and prepared for elections, needs to have a date for an election in order to establish the eligibility date for those who will reach 18 so that they can be on the voters list and they can vote. Due to complaints and calls seeking clarification from residents that since the Chief Justice ruling on August the 14th, GCOM house-to-house teams are continuing to tell residents that the Chief Justice ruled that the house-to-house registration is not unlawful and people must be registered or they won't obtain the new national ID cards as the present ones are decommissioned. This is serious issues, and of course you have ads in the papers that are also confusing people with the same issue. GCOM is spreading confusion and fear amongst people. In fact, people are being told if they don't re-register, they don't register in the house-to-house, although their name's on the voters list already, that they, especially this is being told to pensioners, that they would be unable to access their pension because they would not have the new ID cards. So let's go through this misinformation that is being spread by GCOM. Let's go through step by step. What did the Chief Justice say in her ruling on August the 14th? Here are some things she said. Firstly, elections were due 3 months after the passage of the no confidence motion on December 21st in accordance with Article 106, which was, as she said, and as the Caribbean Court of Justice said, immediately engaged. She noted that the date was not extended by a 2/3 majority of the members of the National Assembly. So in fact, we're stuck. we should have had elections by March the 21st. Secondly, she points out that whilst the house-to-house registration by and of itself is not unlawful or unconstitutional, the removal of names from the National Register of Registrants based on persons not being home, overseas, etc., and scrapping of the National Register of Registrants as being done by GCOM is illegal. The third issue, the house-to-house registration cannot deregister people who are already on the National Register of Registrants. And therefore, those who are already on the November 12, 2008 voters list, do not need to register at house-to-house registration again. 4. There is no residency requirement for Guyanese to be on the National Register of Registrants, and persons' names cannot be removed unless they die or are no longer Guyanese, except Commonwealth citizens who are here for 1 year. So what it is saying is that we have to be residents of Guyana. It doesn't say that we have to be here at the time of the house-to-house registration. The Chief Justice mentioned several times that the voters list can be refreshed by other means as provided in law, such as claims and objections. She also pointed out that GCOM must now choose options available to it by law to verify and refresh the voters list, taking into consideration the context that elections were due since March 21st, 2019. Now, for those of you who may not believe me, the court decision is out, it's available, and of course, it is there for people to read and see for themselves. Madam Chief Justice, acting Roxanne George, Wiltshire, ruling on August the 14th, in no way deviated from the Constitution, neither the CCJ rulings of June 18th nor its consequential orders of July 12th. Based on what the Chief Justice what she said in her ruling, the APNU government has been illegal since March the 21st. Furthermore, there is no reason why persons being registered in the house-to-house cannot be issued with the same national ID card presently in circulation. This new emphasis on decommissioning the present national ID cards and replacing them with new ID cards is one, not an absolute or consequential requirement after house-to-house registration. And secondly, and most importantly, it is another opportunity being used by the government and elements in the GCOM to delay the holding of elections and to spend an enormous amount of more money. GCOM, as a commission, has not made a decision to decommission the present national ID cards, and certainly cannot contemplate doing so before the house-to-house registration has been completed. So it can't all of a sudden announce in the middle of a house-to-house registration that the present ID cards are decommissioned, when in fact they have not finished the house-to-house registration, nor have they started issuing new ID cards. And if we go from the 2008, post-2008 house-to-house registration, which was the last one held here, that subsequently, after all the names were in and a new list of registrants was created, people then were given time to collect their new national ID cards. And in fact, it took several years for people to go in and switch their new ID cards. And those cards, the old red cards, as we knew them in the 80s and 90s, were then decommissioned probably a year or two after the exercise was completed and a large number of people already had the new ID cards. So at present, the ID cards that we have from 2009 up to now are legal, and they would need to be continued being used until a period after the house-to-house, if it were to not be halted, and if GCOM took a decision to decommission, to allow persons to uplift new ID cards. So I think people should not be afraid of this. They should not be afraid and intimidated. I know that pensioners are being told, and pensioners are very vulnerable to this kind of propaganda and misinformation by GCOM because they depend on the survival on their old age pensions, from their pensions from NIS, etc. It goes without saying that GCOM is bound by the Constitution and has to make a decision in compliance with the Constitution. Over the last 8 months, GCOM refused to prepare for elections. In actual fact, it is the Patterson-led GCOM that has been an integral part of the subversion of constitutional rule in our country. This is the first time that elections have not been held within 90 days from the date of dissolution for general regional elections in 1992, 97, 2001, 2011, and 2015, as well as the local government elections of 2016 and 2018, as required by the Constitution and statutes. The difference with the no-confidence vote is that the 3-month period starts on the day, the night, that the vote was passed in the National Assembly. So the 3 months starts from December 31st. Unlike under normal times, normal elections, that the President announces a date and the 3 months is calculated from the date in which he dissolves Parliament. And so the regional democratic councils, of course. So there's a difference. There's still a 3-month that GCOM must always be ready to have elections. The difference of when it commences. On a no-confidence motion, it starts on the night, the day when the no-confidence vote passes in the National Assembly. In the normal elections, it is when the President announces the date for elections. Elections must be held within 3 months of that. Well, we have a new chairperson, the retired Justice Claudette Singh, and it is hoped that the now fully constituted GCOM shall right the injustice that has been done to the Guyanese people over the last 8 months and abide with alacrity with the constitutional provisions of Article 106 as exhorted by the Caribbean Court of Justice on July the 12th. Remember, it was Justice Claudette Singh who ruled on the importance of the right to vote in the Esther Pereira versus the Chief Elections Office and others in 1998, where she said that the right to vote is recognized as a constitutionally protected right. The Patterson-led GCOM did everything to ensure that no preparations for elections were commenced prior to March 21st. Instead, in the same month, preparing for house-to-house registration. This is a travesty that has whittled away the confidence of the people in the Guyana Elections Commission. An issue I hope that the new chairperson and the Commission will address urgently in order to win back the confidence of the electorate. But it must do so quickly. It cannot palaver on this issue. The country must not be confused with regards to the time for the house-to-house field exercise and the time allocated for the total house-to-house registration to be concluded. Given GCOM's work plan dated February the 25th, 2019, it was projected the house-to-house registration would take from June 2nd to December 18th, 2019, a total of 199 days, or 6 months and 16 days. Since the exercise started 1 month and 18 days later, it means that the date would most likely be pushed to early February 2020. Add to that the other consequential processes, such as data verification and entry into the National Register of Registrants, the cross-matching of the fingerprints, the production of a preliminary voters list, a claims and objection period, followed by the production of the official list of electors, and elections could very well be held into mid-2020. The inclusion of a new national ID card that has arisen since the house-to-house has started as an issue compounds the problem and extends the period for elections even further. The Chief Justice ruling in regards to the March 21st deadline cannot be taken lightly, and surely this must give impetus to GCOM to act righteously with the backing of the Constitution. It has the strongest and the most powerful backing of all, the Guyana Constitution. Well, we know that GCOM met yesterday and it will meet again on Friday tomorrow. It is absolutely critical to our nation's stability that GCOM must avoid the trap of believing that it has now gone so far in the field exercise that it might as well finish the exercise. Nor must it fall into the government's trap promoted by the government-appointed commissioners. To do so would be to extend the life of the government into mid-2020 and contribute further to the subversion of constitutional rule, the demoralization of the Guyanese electorate, and more wastage of precious time and resources. The chairperson, as a retired judge, knows the Constitution best, and that the Guyana Elections Commission, she knows the Elections Commission has the power to halt and should halt this wasteful exercise of house-to-house registration and immediately commence claims and objection period. This can be done with existing registration centers and staff already in place that have been used for the House-to-House registration and be ready to hold elections long before the month of December, as being promoted by Congress-placed WPA and Garrido Low. We assert our right under the Guyana Constitution to exercise our sovereignty and our power to elect our representatives to govern our nation, and demand that the President and his illegal caretaker government name a date for the elections. We urge GCOM to act with alacrity to prepare for elections. GCOM's mandate is that it must always be ready to hold elections. In the light of the Chief Justice ruling on August the 14th, one has to ask, how much longer can the President and his APNU AFC government pretend to be legitimate? Rather, it is a usurper in government. It has no legitimacy to remain in office. As we've said before on this program, we're on the edge of a dictatorship, and only the people can stop this illegal caretaker government. Constitutional rule is now under siege. It cannot remain in office in defiance of the Constitution and the Caribbean Court of Justice. This is a travesty unheard of in any democratic or democratic aspiring nation. I said before in this program that I have searched and gone through various different countries' records to see if there's any other head of state or head of government in the face of a no confidence motion that was passed successfully, refusing to hold elections and dilly-dallying and postponing it indefinitely, despite in all countries there is a time requirement, different times for different countries, when elections must be held after a no confidence vote. All Guyanese recognize that all of the President and the APNU AFC government efforts have been to extend the life of the government as long as possible into 2020. I believe it is highly unlikely that the Granger caretaker government will deviate from its plan to remain in office for another year following the no-confidence motion. I would hope to be proven wrong, and this is one issue I would like to be proven wrong. Whichever way it goes, the APNU AFC coalition government's days are numbered, whether elections are held this year or next year. However, with each day that goes by without the election being called, the country suffers, the economy suffers. We are a people and a country that is directionless. We have no direction, and we're floating in an open body of water with no rudder, no paddle, no engine. The country suffers. Let us look at some facts. The People's Progressive Party Civic, as you know, was in office from 1992 to 2015. If we look at the figures of the expenditure, public expenditure, by the People's Progressive Party in government from 1993 to 2014, it expended $1.983 trillion, $1.983 trillion over 21 years. The APNU AFC from 2016 to 2019, thus far, have expended $1 trillion with nothing to show for it, with not one transformative project. On average for the PPC, the $1.9 trillion worked out to be $92.3 billion per year over a 21-year period. And for the APNU AFC government, an annual average of $254.2 billion in 4 years. So PPP on average over 21 years had spent $92.3 billion, and APNU AFC in the space of 4 years annually expended $254 billion. This the PNC-led APNU AFC coalition government spent almost triple on average per year to what the PVPC spent. Think about it. Think about those figures. One must ask, which government handled or is handling the country's resources better? The presidential candidate, the People's Progressive Party Civic presidential candidate, Irfan Ali, last weekend stated that the constitutional crisis will ultimately destroy our economy and add tremendous hardships to our people who are experiencing this daily. Since the no confidence motion, our assets, the assets of Guyana, are down to $7 billion. If we look at our gold reserve, which is like our savings for a rainy day, these have been plundered by the government. And let me give you some hardcore data before someone starts shouting from the Guyana National Broadcasting Authority that we're saying things that are wrong. These are data, and I challenge him to go look for it. The gold reserves. On June 2014, the gold reserves stood at $16.2 billion. $16.2 billion. A year later, June 2015, it was reduced to $15.5 billion. In June 2016, a year after the government came into office, the figure had dropped to $12.5 billion. So approximately $3 billion in gold had been sold. In June 2017, another year later, the $12.5 billion of June 2016 had dropped to $4.6 billion. A year later again, June the 28th, the reserves had dropped from $4.6 billion to $3.1 billion. May 2019, we had $2.7 billion worth of gold reserves. A month later, June the 2019, it is now $589 million. So we have dropped from what would have been $15.5 billion in 2015, June, to June 2019 to $589 million. Where is this money gone? They've been selling our gold in different times when the price was fallen on the world market, and therefore we lost doubly. So how does the APNU AFC answer to the Guyanese people what they've done with our savings, with our fallback, our safety valve as a country? Where is this money gone? We sold the largest amount of gold, of our gold reserves in the history of this country. And no one is accounting to the Guyanese people. No one is saying anything to the Guyanese people about this. So our fallback, in terms of our gold reserves, have been depleted from $15.5 billion in June 2015 to $589 million in June 2019. And by the way, remember, the elections were due on March the 21st. So the government had no legal cover to be expending huge quantities of our reserves and our gold reserves without proper scrutiny. This was a caretaker government, and in fact, as of March 21st, with no extension of Parliament, it is actually illegal. Our country is in serious trouble. As I said, as I showed you the statistics, the government has plundered our gold reserves. And as I said, where is the money earned from the sale of our gold reserves gone? Where are they? And I want to remind the younger generation, when we got into government in October 1992, the government had used a company in Canada to deposit our gold reserves there. And that person would trade with our gold reserves. When we came into office, there was a huge problem of accountability of the gold reserves. And where was the money that was accumulated for our gold reserves? There were no proper answers for this, and many of the losses of revenue that could not be accounted for had to be written off by the Auditor General's office in 1993 and 1994. The money was used in the gold reserves in Washington and in Toronto for ministers' trips, ministers' medical issues, and other kind of activities which the cabinet, headed by President Hoyt, approved in those days. So we're going through a similar issue with the gold reserves now, pre-1992 and now, 20-odd years later. Minister Jordan finally released the mid-year report of 2019. And of course, we find some issues in there we'd like to bring to your attention. The average price of the Brent crude oil, which is what Guyana buys, was 66 US per barrel during the first half of 2019, 7% lower than the same period in 2018. That's nice because we should be saving money if we're paying less for the Brent crude oil, which is what we use mostly at GPL, etc. But the question is, why was this drop in price globally not passed on to the consumers? As you know from the 2008 economic and financial crisis, the PPC government put into place an arrangement where as the price went up or went down, the cost to the consumer was varied, and in certain taxes were on a sliding scale so that the consumer did not pay more for the cost of gas, or very little bit more. Of course, when the government came in, they abandoned that issue. So there are years between 2015 and now where the price of oil has gone down, and yet we have not benefited as consumers, whether to do with our GPL bills, whether buying fuel at the pump, or any other thing. And this is where the government will then announce it has made GPL and others are showing profits. Well, they're not really. If we look at livestock production, it shows that in the half year, 2018, it accounts for 21,219 units of chicken. 2019, mid-year, it has dropped to 19,476, a decline of 8.2% or minus 8.2%. And this is from a Ministry of Agriculture source that is quoted in the mid-year report. So this explains why there are shortages of chickens on the market, as well as the issue of hatching eggs, which also decreased. And so the importation of eggs also decreased in this period. Mainly, again, taxation cost, the foreign exchange went up as well, so that, or the Guyana currency was devalued further. And so everything costs more. If instead of paying 208 for $1 US, you're paying 213, 14, 15, and 16 Guyana dollars for $1 US. This will have an impact on the cost of living for people. If we go to the macro figures, if you go to the capital account, the current account recorded a deficit of $866.8 million US dollars at the end of June 2019. This is a further increase in our deficit from what was $578.5 million at the end of June 2018. So our current account, we're in greater debt. We're in a greater deficit than we were before. In spite of the revenue, and this is, I'm quoting from the mid-year report, in spite of the revenue reducing measures announced in Budget 2019, revenue collection totaled $115.9 million at the end of June 2018, 6.1% above the corresponding period in 2018. End of quote. Well, we know that is taxes. So it goes on to say, this was due primarily to increased collections from all the major tax types. Income taxes increased by $6.2 billion, value added and excise taxes grew by $1.6 billion, and the trade taxes were higher by $0.8 billion. So it's on page 23 of the mid-year report. So it is showing that, clearly, the government strategy for national development in Guyana is based on a taxation policy and aggressive collection of taxes and hounding down people for the collection of taxes, while also giving away no taxes and tax exemptions to the oil and gas companies. So we, the people who have less money, less capacity, less resources, are paying more in taxes per capita than the oil companies are paying in this country, which is zero. And so what is very clear, they're proud to announce there's a 6.1% increase in revenue collection of taxes at $115.9 billion. So far in 2019, the year is not over. And so clearly the government's policies is based, it cannot improve its exports. It has been damaging our multi-sectoral economy. And so the amount of money that comes in as revenue from sugar has dropped after closing the estates the amount of money coming in from bauxite and rice and forestry, gold, are not showing any great increases other than in gold with the two companies, and one of the companies now threatening to close down. And so what the government has done is taken a multi-sectoral economy, a diverse economy, and made it more and more a monoculture. That is a primary based economy on one matter, one issue, one item, and that is oil and gas, which we have not begun to feel the impact of. We've not even pulled one drop of oil out. Internal revenue collection increased by 6.1 billion, or 12.5% more. So the amount of internal revenue collection increased to 54.3 billion during the first part of 2019. This increase was primarily attributed to higher payments of withholding tax, personal income taxes, and private corporation tax. So again, I'm quoting from the mid-year report. During this period, withholding tax grew by 3.9 billion, or 65.9%, largely reflecting payments from companies within the oil and gas sector. So this is not, the big companies. These are those offering services. Arrears on this category accounted for 0.4 billion during the same period. So that, let's go now to value-added tax collections. Increased by 2.1 billion to 24.8 billion during the January to June 2019 when compared with the same period. In other words, what the government is trying to say, it's got more efficient with collecting taxes. The problem is that it has worsened the lives of our people and the quality of lives of our people. Let's go to NIS, which many of us who are public servants were public servants, teachers, nurses, etc. all have to, it's automatically paid out from your salary. And many public servants look forward to the time when they retire that they'll have access to their pensions. Well, NIS announced recently, a few days ago, that by 2021 it will run out of funds. For the first half of 2019, and this again I'm going back to the mid-year report of Mr. Jordan, the scheme, that's a national insurance scheme, recorded an overall deficit of 748.4 million, compared with 715.6 million recorded in 2018. Why is there a drop? Well, 7,000 sugar workers who paid PAYE and also paid their NIS through Gaisuco are no longer contributing, and in fact they are now looking and hoping to get their NIS benefits, particularly those that are of age to get pensions. The total unemployment in the country that has gone up in the last five years has gone to 29,000. This is new unemployed, not the unemployed that they inherited from May 2015. So 29,000 people have been put on the dole, as they say in the United States. They're unemployed, and therefore they're not contributing to NIS. They're not contributing to NIS. And NIS, how does it grow? By people contributing who are younger, energetic, healthier, to take care of the scheme later on for those who are older and who've been contributing at far lower rates 30 years ago, 40 years ago. That's how these social security systems work. So what it is very clear is when you have periods of high unemployment, the generation of revenue that NIS would collect in terms of deductions has been reduced, and therefore the deficit for the NIS increases. In other words, it is paying out more than it is receiving. Let's go back to the mid-year report. At the end of the first half of 2019, external public debt was $1,274 million US dollars. That is $1.3 billion US dollars. That's 1.8% higher than the 2018 half-year period. So in other words, our public debt, external public debt, has increased. And this has come about mainly because 95.9% is increase in debt to the World Bank, the International Development Association, and so on. So that our debt has increased because we are borrowing more. And the government has been borrowing more during the period post no confidence motion. These snippets I've taken from the mid-year report illustrates the government's bad policies and poor management of the economy in the nation. It explains why you and all of us are having a harder time to make ends meet. It also shows the lack of care by a government who is driven by tax and collecting more and more revenue, and not in terms of looking at social safety nets and to assist those who are low income or poor and vulnerable sections of the population. No matter how much green and yellow satchels the government gives out to school children, this is not going to change the poverty levels in our country. The fact that all these yellow and green satchels that have been given out and are being given out by the so-called generous ministers of the government were all donated. We know which companies donated and who were made to donate by the government. And so it allows ministers to walk around this country and looking like Santa Claus, distributing. Well, of course, Santa Claus would have to wear red, and the APNU AFC is allergic to the color red. So it would be a Santa in green and yellow. But they, in fact, made sure that all the satchels had the party colors. Can you imagine that, doing that to children? That this small-mindedness of this government is that they even have to make sure they brand the children of Guyana with the yellow and green. This is called branding. And so satchels that they acquired, which cost $800 a satchel, which the government hasn't paid for, by the way. As I said, they were donations that were bullied in some cases, charmed in other cases by government ministers to give them, to hand them over so they could look like, great caring ministers out in the various areas. But the issue is that each satchel was $800 versus the 10,000 cash care that was given to every child registered in every school across Guyana in 2013 and 2014. And it was given from the taxpayers' money, from the government program. And so let's go to another example of this great caring and use of money that cannot be accounted for, yet the conditions of our people are not improving. In a number of interior areas, in quite a large percentage of interior areas, the school uniform material allowances and/or materials have not been paid for the school year that's just completed, September 2018 to July 2019, nor have the communities, and particularly Amerindian communities in these areas, received any allowances or materials for the upcoming school year of September 2019 to July 2020. And of course, we have the recent announcement today by the Minister of Social Protection, Minister Ahmed Ali, announced that from 2020, old age pensions will be deposited in the pensioners' bank accounts. Hi. Where do these ministers live? Do they live in another country? A large percentage of pensioners in this country, particularly the very poor, do not have bank accounts. And then you have the logistical nightmare when you live in the interior in Amerindian communities, where in many cases there are no banks easily available. Is the minister and the cabinet so clued out about what Guyana is like that, I was in the Maruka sub-region. The post office is at Kumaka in Maruka. Pensioners have to travel sometimes from the night before, depending how far they're coming from, which village, which creek, to come to the post office in Kumaka and sit there to get their pensions. Many times the post office doesn't have the money. But there's no bank in the area, so what bank accounts are they talking about? There's no ATM you can just pull out money from in the area. Or are they going to set up a system like in parts of Africa where you can use your cell phone and get money? I don't know. We go to many parts of Guyana. In Region 7, there's no bank in Upper Maz or in Middle Maz. So how are these people getting their pensions? This is a an example of utter madness in our country, of people who are totally divorced from the reality of our country. So you have a bank account in Bartica, but you live in Upper Mass or Cayuni. How are you going to get access to your money? The old system, which was there before, is the two showers of the villages would come out to the nearest post office. In Upper Mass, they might be at Camarang, for example. They would take the pension books, bring out the pension books, go to the post office, collect all the pensions, travel back in, and give the people their pensions. The government decided, the Ministry of Social Protection under Valda Lawrence's watch, decided no, that could not happen. His matter was raised in Parliament by Alex Charlie, Member of Parliament and Geographic MP for Region 9. That why were the pensioners in Region 9 having to travel all the way to Letham, to collect, because that's where the post office is, to collect the money instead of the two showers coming out and collecting the money from the post office and returning the money to the pensioners, which they all sign up and stuff like that. Was there any reason why that was stopped? The minister gave no indication why the reason was stopped, or whether there was any complaints by the pensioners in the various interior areas and Amrani communities, but that it was stopped and the pensioners must travel. So you have in some areas people having to pay $5,000, $10,000 to come out to a post office to collect their money and travel back in with what? $2,000, $3,000? So the banking option that Ms. Amna Ali is speaking about is absurd. It may work in some parts of the coast. It cannot work in 2/3 of Guyana, where the majority are living in isolated hinterland communities, and in many cases where there isn't a bank nearby. So this is just, as I said, madness. And you remember we talked about the voters list and the interest of the plan, as far as we're concerned, of the government to add names of persons who are not eligible to be voters in Guyana. There may be persons who are non-Guyanese, in other cases may not be of age. And we had spoken about the Haitians in a couple programs before, about the exploitation of the Haitians in Guyana by those who are carrying out a human smuggling ring, as well as those who have political agendas, and trying to put Haitians on the voters list with either new Guyanese identity or other. We now have, and Mr. Felix said, bring the evidence. Bring the evidence. He's a former commissioner of police. We know exact crossings of where they're going through in the Brazil-Guyana border. It's seen by people. I don't know what kind of police force exists now, or what kind of intelligence gathering goes on, or whether Mr. Felix, like a number of other government officials, are just turning the other way. But we do now have evidence of a Haitian with a Haitian passport and a work permit he got 3 years ago, being registered in the house-to-house registration by GCOM. And this is what we've been predicting since last year, that this was what the government could do. The person clearly was listed as a Haitian. Haiti is not a Commonwealth country. CARICOM countries are not considered to be automatically a Commonwealth country. And Haiti and Cuba are associate members of CARICOM and not full-fledged members of CARICOM. So Haiti does not qualify as a Commonwealth citizen who has been living here for 1 year to be put on the voters list. Nor can it be used. This is where a Haitian passport was used to register. And so, again, my dear friends who are Haitians, please forgive my very bad French, and I cannot speak Creole. But I want to appeal to you again, as I did 2 weeks ago. Je désire parler avec les Haïtiens directement. Ne pas peur. Ne vous permettez pas à utiliser pour l'objectif de le gouvernement. Ce n'est pas possible pour les Haïtiens inclure dans les exercices de registration. C'est une offense pour personnes qui non Guyanese ou non Commonwealth à voter dans les élections ici. Ne permettez-vous, ne permettez-vous à exploiter contre les contradictions de Guyana et les statuts. L'office de la chef de l'opposition dans le Parlement est ici et nous sommes ouverts pour vous aider. As I said, forgive me for my very bad French. But we also, as Guyanese, have always stood opposed to exploitation of people. That is our history of struggle for independence, for democracy, and we are once again in the fight for democracy again. And we cannot watch fellow humans being exploited in our country, in our borders, for the profit of those profiteering of senior people and others in our society. We are in a period of madness, my dear friends. Mr. Granger must name a date for the elections. Well, we're here and we have some time, so you have your say now. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Teixeira.
Yes.
Like you said, the country is in a madness. We are not seeing anything. You should be driving up on Saturdays at the market, which used to be a busy market. Few people are walking around.
Yeah.
You go downtown, and this is school season, so maybe the kids are around buying their school things. But
Yeah.
What I see here, and what maybe afterward, off here, I'd like you to explain to me. What we see here are a lot of shopping done by the Cubans, the Panamanians. I can't really pick them out. The only time I really picked these people out was when I was in a flight to JFK via Cooper Airlines, Panama. Then it was only 8 of us, and the whole plane was full with, I would think, Panamanians. Panamanians, whatever.
Panamanians, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And this, it troubles me because I tell everybody, and the 8 of us that were left there to board another flight were people coming in from Panama, going in transit again. We should be dropping off, and they're in transit again, coming to Ghana. They're shopping. These people are shopping. They got big bags. I can remember them pushing you in a corner, at the airport, because we were only 8 of us out Guyanese. And we find ourselves together, and they speak, I don't know what language. I'm not affiliated with language. I can really pick up some accent sometimes, but they were packed to the airport. I didn't like it. And I wanted some answers, which I couldn't get. Unfortunately, I went and had some shopping time. I did what I had to do, and I was coming back again because I had booked coming back with Cooper Airlines. Cooper Airlines, the American passengers, the Panamans, they came out. And there were 13 of us left there. And if those 13 persons are hearing me, because we had vast discussion. The 5-hour wait was, what are they going to do in our country? We were waiting there for the next flight adjoining to Guyana. We had 5 hours wait. We had 3 American-based Guyanese, and we had some Guyanese who went for funeral and for me vacation, and we were waiting there. We were waiting there for 5 hours. Then, half an hour before board, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Up in the airport is so Panama first time I'm in transit in Panama is really nice because you can see when all the planes come around. And then the flight come up thinking, well, okay, our flight will be in half an hour. And then there is this one, I can't check then, but I did remember checking when they start running up. These people start behaving as if first time they're coming into another country. I feel sorry for them because the same thing you would feel sorry for the poverty people in our country. So I thought, my first thought is that, the 12 of us was aghast. Who's behaving? Well, this is not Guyanese. Guyanese are not behaving like this. They're rushing, they're pushing us. So the two young attendants who were there to board us was aghast too. They was in shock, so they stopped boarding them because they were pushing in front. We had to just step back. And then they moved from there and they stopped everything and they went and get an older one. So they board us first. We're 13 of us there. And they put us in the back so we can be really safe. And then they start pulling the plane up with these people. They were young people. Let me explain to you. Let people in here know. They were young people like from 18 to 27 to 30. They were not older people than that. And this is personally what I experienced. Right? They were speaking a different language. French. They were speaking French. I tried speaking. None of them had any pieces of luggage. None. None had. Few ladies had a little handbag. They had 4 kids with them. The kids were about 5 to 7 years old. I remember we were aghast. We were looking. This didn't come off the people there who. What are they going to Guyana to do? What we have there? Do we have jobs? They don't know we have nothing there. You know, so I was not peeking in some of the passports, and I couldn't. You know, you can't do that. So I didn't get to know, you know, which country. Yeah. But because when we came here, they let us off first. Again, they let us off here, the airport here, and they let us go to custom first. And then they lined them up. But we are talking in the plane. We are Guyanese and we are American-based Guyanese, so we know that Guyana don't have jobs for them. So we were talking all the time.
Yeah.
And we were talking that what they should do then is ask them how much money you have to show that where you're going to stay and how long you're going to stay in Guyana, because we know for sure that there's no jobs for them here.
Okay, I think that there are a number of issues raised, and right now the irony of it all is that, one, the economy, as you pointed out in the beginning, to do with the markets, circulation of money, the businesses, markets are not doing well, etc. People are not buying. The irony of the situation is that the shoppers, those who are coming in to shop and take goods out, are basically helping the economy and bringing US dollars into the country. There are different issues to do with non-Guyanese entering Guyana. One has been to do with the concern that there's a human smuggling ring that is bringing them out and using Guyana as a transshipment point to go to Brazil, Venezuela, etc. You have also the American decision that the Cubans must come to Guyana, to the U.S. Embassy here, to apply for visas. So there's a large group of Cubans coming in who may shop and so on, but really they're coming in to put in their applications for U.S. visas to go to United States.
The Haitians?
No, the Cubans.
Oh, I'm not talking about the Cubans.
No, but I did say the Haitians are being exploited in a human smuggling ring. We're convinced of that there are those coming in who are being trafficked and smuggled across the border, and people are being paid enormous amount of money right here in Guyana, including senior people, to facilitate the human smuggling ring. You have some...
Can't we know who are these people and expose them?
Well, they were, what do you say, 130 Bill down. As I said earlier, we had been pointing out the human smuggling ring is one profiteering and exploiting the Haitians, but also it is one in which there's a political agenda to put some of them in the house-to-house registration. And as I said earlier, we have one case we found of a Haitian being registered in the house-to-house registration. So we believe that's padding their list as well. But there are two aspects to the Haitians. One is the exploitation issue. They are being smuggled, and it does include Haiti, officials in Haiti, maybe Jamaica, maybe Brazil, Guyana, as well as those who are facilitating actual physical movement through Guyana. So we're exploring, investigating. We've raised it for a year now with the government, and every time the government says it's not an issue, that we're making up stories. So we will continue to keep investigating on our own and finding out. But you do have an issue of we have been calling on the government to do investigate, and they have basically said to us, it's not a problem, it's not an issue. But we continue to explore it. Anyway, I've got another call coming. If you would allow me just to take one more call before we close the program.
Okay.
Thank you for calling, madam. Have a good day.
Yeah, yes.
Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public
Hi,
Importance.
good evening, Mr. Chair.
Hi, good afternoon.
Yeah, I think you sit there and you making a lot of false reports. You always would you sit on Sharma's channel when you treat Sharma so unfair. I don't think you should sit there. You should not do that because Sharma is a part of the government. And you should not have sit there and just making all these documentation coming in. Stop it, man. You do.
Thank you very much for your comments. I'm sure that there are other television programs, including NCN. You can express your views about me and what you're doing. I want to just remind the viewers for the umpteenth time, including the caller calling in, and that is that this hour on a Thursday between 12:30 and 1:30 was given by Mr. Sharma to Mr. Granger as Leader of the Opposition in the period 2012 to 2015. When the government changed in 2015, the same hour, the exact hour that was given to the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Granger, was given to the Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Jagdeo. And the PEP decided to put me on the program. So that's how it came about. If you don't like it, you can go tell Mr. Sharma to take us off the program if you wish. The point is that this was a facility that Mr. Sharma extended to the Leader of the Opposition both before 2015 and after. And neither Mr. Granger nor us in the PEP opposition are charged for this 1 hour. So if you have a problem with me being on Sharma, call Mr. Sharma and report it. This is not my issue. The issue of Mr. Sharma agreeing to do exactly what he did for APNU, AFC when they're in opposition, doing the same thing for the PEPC in opposition. And we have always acknowledged and thanked Mr. Sharma for being fair-handed and balanced on this issue. Thank you very much. Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Good day, Madam Chair.
Yes, good day.
You have to listen to David Hines. He said the more the long the new government stays in power, he losing his base because if he go underground, he will see the youth, them talking. They will be losing their support base the more longer they stay in the
Yes.
government. You're talking about the Asians. You come in Diamond, you will see how much of them they walk in at the hardware store. When they finish loading their things, they would ask you for a raise. I see the people coming out house to house to register. I sit down after I watch them. They pass where I live. I see them go picking houses where they look like Amerindians or people got a little fluent in English, a different talking. They would go there. But you would sit down waiting and they would not come to your house.
Yeah.
I see them pass 20 houses where I live. I sit down and call them and I want to ask them, I call them. I said, what you all doing really? I said, house. I said, what happens is all these houses here? And they just left and then go. They said, we're coming back the next day. I sat down the whole week and waiting and now nobody is going.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, we need to expose this more and more.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing that to our attention again. Yes, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance. I'm going over a minute over the time. Yes, good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance. Hello? Hello? Good afternoon. Welcome to Matters of Public Importance.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
You know, you was on my free since I grew up as a little boy, but am I listening to me carefully?
Yeah, what's
I know
your time though?
in the party since I was small by growing up, right?
Depends how old you are, my dear.
Yeah, I know in the party, I used to listen to your aunt and all sometimes listen to you. But one thing gets me upset is Jack Deal. I think Jack Deal disrespect you, but disrespect the people in the party. Because the reason why. You see old stallion leaving the party, right? Why him now come in the party since Jack Washington give you power. He now come into the party. Why the guys I used to see going to UG, I used to pass to UG. Jack Deal with the little election for giving power because he want to control the guy. What about you when before in the party, years before Jack Deal, because I can remember when WPA and PPP come together to overthrow Bonham, to march against Bonham, used to be there. I used to be the WP coming around. What about the old stallion now, who's been in the party before? They may get a space or a voice in the party. Jack, you know, come in the party. I used to work with PNC at the time. He used to be PNC, he used to work at the basement night. What about the old stallion who went to the party before? They have a voice. Jack, he's God or something for the party. So he can reject everybody else and put somebody you feel like controlling.
No, I think you have it wrong. I'll answer you. I'll have to take you off because I'm now 5 minutes over the deadline for the program. But I think the caller has a number of things wrong. Jagdeo didn't appoint Irfan. The Central Committee of the party did. The party leadership did. And so everyone had their preferences. They had several candidates. But the Central Committee made its decision. And each candidate had to present their views and present themselves to the executive and were scrutinized by the executive and the Central Committee. So I don't think this line that is being carried, I am not disrespected by Mr. Jagdeo or other members of the leadership of the party. I am been given the responsibility of doing this program, which has been assigned to the leader of the opposition. So I take it as a trust in me and a respect for me and my capabilities. So I think that those of us who are older also have to make room for the younger people. You have to make younger for the younger generation. We there who are older, who've gone through experiences. I remember when I came in the party in 1970s, some of the old heads said, where were you in the 1960s? In the 60s, I was a little girl. And so, too, I can't say to some of the younger generation who are in their 30s, where were you in the 1970s? They weren't born yet. So, I mean, life goes on. We have to build. We have to bring new people in, new blood in. That's how the PDP survived for 69 years. It's the oldest political party in Guyana. And so we're okay. It is all right. There is a time for all of us as we get older and the role we play. And so I think that the younger generation coming up have to be molded and supported and helped and guided. And that is the role of some of us who have grown up in the PDP and we're older now. So don't go on that line. I'm not being disrespected by Jagdeo. And in fact, when Jagdeo returned from the Soviet Union studying as an economist, he worked in state planning as a technical and professional person. He didn't work with Hoyt. He wasn't a member of the PNC or anything to that effect. He was also always PPP and was a member of the PYO since he was young. And so let's go in that direction. What is the issue today is, and so I have to, I guess, quickly wrap up, is that what is the choice we Guyanese people have? You have a choice between constitutional rule and democracy or a government that is refusing to come out of office, is refusing to hold elections. Because if the government feels that it's so strong and so powerful, then why not hold elections? If the government is so confident that it could win, then hold the elections. And let's see. But this delaying from March 21st on and making no preparations and putting one obstacle into place and another obstacle shows that the government is terrified to hold elections, that it cannot hold elections because it knows it will lose. And the longer it continues to delay, of course it is losing support. Many of the supporters are embarrassed. So we have a choice as a people. There are bread and butter issues we have to fight for. We have to remove these taxes when we get into office, etc. But there's also the higher issues, the issues of constitutional democracy. Because what has fundamentally happened from March 21st is that we, the people of Guyana, have been denied our right to vote and to choose our elected representatives. We choose the representative who will govern us for the next 5 years. And that's Article 9 and other fundamental rights of our Constitution. So it isn't only about Article 106 and Article 106 of the Constitution with no confidence motion. This is now a fundamental right of the Guyanese people that are being denied. So think about all these things. I've gone way over my time, and I appreciate and thank the technician for allowing me to have some more time. I wish you all the best, and you have a good weekend, and don't drink and drive, and let's continue the dialogue. Let's continue talking, because it's important. I don't mind callers who call in and are critical of me. It allows me to answer. But at the same time, we have to be able to deal with what are the main issues, what are the crux of the matter. Do we want to keep Granger in power in defiance of the Constitution, or do we want to have elections and may the best party win? Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. Remember, don't drink and drive. Behave yourselves. Bye-bye. Ta-ta.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of CNS Channel 6.